I hope you're ready for what will probably be my messiest cast of 2026. What I've got for you today is the finals of a recent tournament played on the Patches Versus Mod. I'll go over that in just a little bit, but in this best of 7 series, in the bottom left, representing the Zerg, we're looking inside of the main base of Reynor, and all the way in the upper right, playing with the red SCVs, we have ByuN. So, this is a custom fan-made mod for StarCraft. As you probably are aware, there's always a lot of drama. There's always a lot of people thinking that their balance is going to be better than whatever Blizzard can cook up. And oftentimes, that doesn't turn out to be the case, but many times, it does turn out to be a little bit better. And this is a mod that's been in the works for a very long time. Now, Patches, who is the creator of this particular mod, made a Google Docs that I'll go ahead and link down below as well. Where you can read up on what all of the changes are. Now, my original plan before casting this finals was to read the whole thing and then try to summarize it, but I did not quite realize that it's over 40 pages long. So here's what I'm going to do instead. Basically, whenever we see things, whenever we see units, whenever we have anything weird going on, I'm going to try and Control F in the document and find out whether or not I can quickly find it. I think that's probably the better thing to do, because trying to grasp all of the units and all of the ones that are likely not even going to be played is already something that is very, yeah, it's going to be very complex. So I think it's probably going to be more fun as well if we just, well, we just go. We just send it. All right, so as you may have already noticed right from the start, we have a 12-worker start. 12 workers, up from 8. I mean, I guess this patch, this mod technically started back when we still had 12 starter workers. Likewise, the Vespian gases also have 2250 gas in it, rather than the, well, currently normal 2000. But obviously, up until very recently, with the introduction of 5.0.16, it used to be 2250 as well. So that is the main economic difference. It's basically that of what StarCraft 2 has been like for a very long time. Now, I know for the Zerg in particular, the queens can be upgraded. So there is a version for the queen that you can go for, where you can upgrade it from a regular queen into a swarm queen instead. First Reaper going in, as ByuN is opening up with a good triple Reaper build. He could even double down here. Yeah, he's going to go up to 4. The norm is to go for 3, at least in the live version of the game. But in this particular instance, that may not always be the case. There's a bunch of structure changes as well, but I think I'm going to focus here at least initially on all of the changes made to the units. So I know for example, that the Reaper is a little bit different too. So there's the concussive shells ability that normally you get on the Marauder. Right now, you can also research it for the Reaper. So it's been renamed to something called concussive grenades. And it basically adds a slow to this particular ability if units are indeed affected by it. That alone is already very interesting. Now, obviously, you're still going to have to go for a tech lab onto a barracks here early on. Maybe we'll see ByuN mixing that in just a moment, but it seems that across the board for now, he's really just trying to use these Reapers to get that early game value while building up his economy. So the overall goal for this patch is to basically have not just like a fun alternative, but a reasonable alternative to the current balance of the game, right? So obviously, there's people out there that have made mods that are absolutely ludicrous. Maybe they're going to be really fun to watch for a one-off series, but this is meant as like an alternative version of multiplayer, where some of the changes are going to be quite a bit more ambitious than what you normally have in the game. So queens, they're 150 minerals each rather than 175. They lose 1 armor. They also gain a damage change, so I think they deal slightly more damage, although they're also going to be attacking slightly differently. Transfused can be used again off creep, and they have an ability for 50 minerals and 1 supply to morph the queens over into swarm queens. And swarm queens are effectively a brand new unit that is just going to make the unit a little bit better. They're going to get additional range, they're going to just be stronger overall, which is really quite interesting. I wonder if that means that you can get away with far more queens or even less queens, right? Like, that could also be the implication. If you can upgrade them anyways, maybe it's not such a bad idea to, yeah, just make fewer queens rather than more. It also depends, of course, on the amount of creep you want to spread, and I believe they've also changed the amount of passive larva that gets generated on hatcheries. Stimpack coming up. That is not an ability, though, that the Reapers here are going to be able to make use of. Keep in mind, of course, that these guys are some of the very best competitors in StarCraft 2, in the normal version of StarCraft 2. So they may not necessarily be super keen to try a lot of the changes here, but a lot of the core units have also indeed been, well, adjusted at the very least. A lot of the little values and whatnot have been adjusted. As far as the Marine goes, I'm actually just going to look it up real quick. I did read through the majority of the document this morning, but I'm actually not sure if the Marine got changed. No, the Raven got like a full rework, and units like the Battlecruiser and whatnot got buffed. But the Marine, and I guess that makes sense, the Marine is identical to how we are all, well, used to the unit. Okay, Lair coming up right now here for Reynor. He is trying to do a bit of a Zergling run-by here. Obviously, there may very well be some confusion as well on my end as we go through this particular series. We'll find out together, I suppose. He's going in for a quick Stimpack too. Not a whole lot of queens available. There's 6 of them out in total, but not all of them here are on the low ground. May have to pull the one from the main base too. Generally speaking, that is something that you focus on here early enough. I'm a little bit disappointed. Reynor is not immediately going into the upgraded version of the queen. It sounds like just straight up a better choice. And I was wondering, if you morph it into a Swarm Queen, is it going to get additional HP? Right? Like, is it going to be able to transform to a Swarm Queen and then respawn at full HP? Because usually, if you have like a low HP Overlord and you morph it into, well, an Overseer, it is going to respawn with full health. I wonder if that's a reasonable way of saving the ladies as well. But apparently it's not really a main focus for now here. Reynor is going into a very fast infestation pit. So I'm guessing his plan is probably mostly just to go straight up towards the Hive. And then I would imagine into Ultralisks. At least just judging by the really quick +2 armor. That is the main thing that makes sense. We do have that hatchery coming up right now as well here. So a good old macro hatch together with a 4th base. It's just going to be really for larva generation. Infestor also added into the mix here. The Infestor, once more, it's gonna have access to the Infested Terran. If you've been playing this game for some time, you will remember the Infested Terran. I know that at this point, though, the unit has been removed out of the game for such a long while already that I think there's going to be many fans of StarCraft out there that may not even be familiar with it. The ability, though, for the Infestor to throw an Infested Terran onto the battlefield did get removed and replaced with Microbial Shroud. Microbial Shroud really only just recently getting buffed to a point where players actually have begun using it regularly. But yeah, maybe in this instance you can go for some good old, I don't know, Brute Lord Infestor as like a go-to unit composition. Now, I know there are some fundamental changes as well made to the Zerg economy. So I think the main thing is that hatcheries, lairs, and hives generate increasing amounts of larva. So the larva spawn rate, for example, of a hive is apparently only 3.5 seconds. You can also have a maximum of 10 larvae onto a base. And I think in order to counteract it, I would imagine at the very least, the queen is going to be quite a bit worse. Let me see. Permanently evolves the queen into a swarm queen. That's all. Mass queen to defend everything has been an unfun part of the game. By nerfing the queen ground damage while buffing their anti-air, the queen will retain their anti-air power to deflect air-based openers, while making mass queens is substantially worse. Okay, so that's a pretty cool concept then. So you are going to be able to make less queens work as well. Oof. Because of the fact that obviously your hatcheries then. There's some interesting animations going on. I think that's from the siege tank. Let me just try and see if I can find the siege tank real quick. Siege tank, siege tank, siege tank. There's a... Allows the medevac to load sieged tanks into siege mode. So we have a Zergling run-by as well. Man, I need more eyeballs in order to follow along with all the things. We have a massive Ling run-by, actually, destroying the economy over at the 3rd. And while I guess the 4th hatchery of Zerg here is in some trouble... Man, I love that animation on the siege tank shots. It looks glorious. Oh, man, this is a disaster for ByuN. ByuN's eco just got destroyed, and his push did not even kill the 4th base of the Zerg. That was horrible. So there's an effect that allows medevacs to load sieged tanks in siege mode, automatically returning them to tank mode. Okay, there's a new upgrade called Crucio Dampener. It reduces the siege tank's friendly fire damage to biological units by 75%. Okay, so basically that means that your Marines are gonna have less of an issue dealing with a lot of it. And I guess, well, we've got our first weird-looking upgrade here. What in the world even is that? Let me try and find it. Hold up, Marauder. Marauder, I guess. This is probably a Marauder buff. It looks like a Marauder buff anyways. I guess we'll see. I can't quite click on the ability and see exactly what it is, because there's no way that I can get the name of the ability. But it should show up on the right side of the screen in just a moment, as the ability is gonna finish. Marine drops over here on the left side, mostly just to keep the Zerg player occupied. Likewise, we have a push as well, headed towards the very bottom of the map. Concussive shell. Oh, that's just concussive shells. That's just the concussive grenades. Right. So that's the one that also benefits Reapers. Fair enough. No more Reapers around, though. That animation for the siege tank firing is sick. I don't see that mentioned anywhere, but it is pretty awesome. It looks brutal, doesn't it? Dang. I kind of love that. Okay. Ultras together with Zerglings and then Infestors. No more Microbial Shroud, so maybe that could be considered a nerf, but you can always throw in a few Infested Terrans to tank some of those fancy siege tank shots as well. I think ByuN is in a world of trouble, right? Like, that's the main issue. He's just lost so much eco, and at this point, Reynor is at 103 drones. He's effectively able to do whatever he likes, and while he's not really too focused, it appears, on trying to really, reinvent the wheel, he's not really trying to make too many crazy changes. Just good old standard Zerg seems to be working out quite nicely. Obviously, the way that he got here is a little bit different. Not a little progression bar on the fungal growth is not usually something we have. Looks like the auto attack on the Infestor is still in, but yeah, this is just the army here of the Terran getting utterly destroyed. And while there was finally some damage done here on the other side of the map, maybe ByuN is going to be able to deflect his army one more time. I think the next wave of Zerg is going to be nearly impossible to stop. Now, this is, of course, the best of 7. This is, of course, a best of 7, meaning that we will likely see some of the spicier strategies being used as well. Gotta be real careful with your Widow Mines here so they don't deal a lot of friendly fire to your own SCV line. Yeah, we can stay in the game, ByuN, but at this point, I think we are really grasping for straws. You have seen that the opponent has got 5 base economy. You've been most recently harassing the 5th. I think on 3 bases, it's gonna be pretty tough to beat a Zerg player of Reynor's caliber. But at the very least, he's got, he's got faith. Let me use this opportunity, though, to then see if maybe there are some additional changes made to the Infestor as well. So, Neural Parasite does still need to be researched. Microbial Shroud, indeed, is removed. There's a new ability called Incubate Infested. Trains and stores an infested Terran inside of the Infestor. Oh, okay. So, sadly, all of the Infestors are gone. But that was what that little, well, load-up bar was, I guess, below the Infestor. You could train Infested Terrans for 20 minerals each. And then you can store up to 4 of them inside of each Infestor. Okay, interesting. Yeah, we did still have a little bit of harassment over here. But honestly, I think this is likely going to be the final attack that Reynor needs to execute. The Widow Mines are putting in a bunch of work. But at this point, Zerg is more than doubling the Terran supply. And while finally a planetary finishes up, I think the ability over here of all the Corruptors, yeah, it's going to take care of that as well. Okay, so that is 68. Yeah, a little bit disappointing right there for both the Millennials as well as the Gen Alpha. That's right between the two funny numbers, but that is 68 SCVs going down in total. And while ByuN really is trying to micro his butt off, I'm not really sure, right? There is an argument to be made to maybe not GG out too early, but I'm really not sure what he could be looking for at this stage in the game. GG. Now, what is this? Something was researching in the Ultra Cavern. Hold up. I'm going to look it up. Ultralisk, new upgrade. Bioaccumulation. Evolves the Ultralisk to heal for 10% of all damage dealt. Oh. This would add like a vampiric ability to the Ultra. So the reasoning is that Ultralisks have always felt bad. The recent reversion of their size has further increased this. This is a partial reversion to their smaller size as well, to make them better to control without really reducing their visual size. And then I guess the, well, vampiric ability over here is going to make them quite a bit better if they do actually manage to get within the fight. Interesting. You know, I used to think that whenever I uploaded a video, I should try and aim for the most polished version of a video that I could get, right? That's how I used to make content way back in the day. I've noticed, though, over the years, it seems like a lot of you enjoy me being a bit of an idiot and maybe not entirely knowing exactly what's going on and basically trying to face tank my way to figuring out how in the world the mod works. Honestly, in this particular instance, though, there's just so many changes. Just like the cost changes alone would be worthy of a regular video, right? Like, for example, the Ultralisk is 300 minerals, 200 gas. That's more expensive than what it normally is in a regular game of StarCraft. That alone, I could already make a 20-minute video about, yeah, just understanding. Like, at some point when a patch becomes super long, when the list is multiple pages, just trying to interpret what the changes are and how they would work out in a regular game is pretty much impossible. Right, if it's like 7 changes, you could maybe think about how it would, yeah, how it would work out in a lot of situations. But when all of the unit interactions get adjusted a little bit, well, some of the cost reductions or increases or whatever, or ranged adjustments, it's just gonna, you're better off just seeing how it works. Wait a second, we have so much larva here. So I mentioned the Hive earlier. How does this work on a hatchery? So a hatchery, okay, I found it. A hatchery can have a maximum larva of 4 rather than 3. The starting larva, only on the first hatchery, has been increased from 3 to 4. Max larva from 19 down to 10. And then the larva spawn rate on the hatchery has been increased, meaning that larva generate a little bit slower. However, then when you get up to a lair, the maximum larva gets increased to 6. And then the larva spawn rate gets increased to 7 seconds, meaning that the larva will spawn far quicker. So the reasoning is that the intention is to reduce the Zerg reliance on queens for injections as the game goes on, and add an alternate way to improve your larva production. Ah, okay, so there's actually a reason to do what the AI does in the campaign, I guess. Right? There's a reason to make multiple lairs and multiple hives. Just because that would give you additional larva generation and obviously also a little bit of tankiness. Again, reducing the reliance on queens. Now, Reynor still ended up going for quite a few queens in the previous game. I wouldn't mind if he maybe, yeah, would experiment with maybe focusing on an extra lair or two. That would be kind of funny. So real quick, the Swarm Queen, right? So we haven't seen one yet, at least as far as I could tell. Visually, I think they look mostly the same, but it's a unit that is slower off creep as well, similar to the Queen, but it's 3 supply in total. So the Swarm Queen gives Zerg an early game option for defending ground-based aggression at the cost of their ability to spawn larva. Ah, okay, so the Swarm Queen is intended to be a more aggressive version of the Queen, changing it from a macro support unit into an anti-ground specialist. Okay, so it loses the ability to inject. Interesting. I don't know if it would be great to use. I mean, I can see a Queen Walk work out, or I guess a Swarm Queen Walk. I could see that working out really nicely. Huh. The Roach Warren. There's a new upgrade as well for the Roach. It's called Bifurcated Incubation. There you go. It's a Roach Warren upgrade that requires Hive. Costs 200 minerals, 200 gas, and it reduces the supply cost of Roaches to 1. So right now, Roaches obviously have a scaling problem in the late game. I guess halving the amount of supply they cost certainly makes them a more worthwhile unit to go for in the later stages of the game. Fun fact, actually, in the earliest version that StarCraft 2 players got to try of Wings of Liberty, when that game was still in beta, Roaches used to be 1 supply for quite a long time. They also had 2 additional base armor. So imagine like current StarCraft 2, but then Roaches are half the amount of supply that they are right now, and they have 2 additional base armor. They were utterly broken, and Blizzard really quickly swung the nerf bet, because they were just, yeah, a one-size-fits-all type of solution. I guess maybe making them 1 supply at Hive Tech, it sounds kind of busted, but obviously, again, right, it would be busted in the current version of StarCraft 2, but with all of the other changes made to this mod, it may very well be fine. Maybe you can swarm the map with Roaches. Who knows? Quick lair coming up here for the Zerg. We had a very fast command center as well for ByuN. ByuN really just focusing on a bio-based army yet again. That's probably the least changed amount of... Like, that's probably the least changed army across the board. Other than maybe giving the concussive grenades there to the Reaper. But I highly doubt that ByuN is going to be adding any late-game Reapers into the mix. I mean, maybe some sort of AoE slow. Could be kind of cool. Glio Reconstitution coming up right now for Reynor, though. We have our first Evo chamber, and I would imagine it's going to be the good old armor. Yep, there it is. Spore Crawlers being set up as well. Try and help deal against any sort of Liberator or potentially Banshee play. We should be able to see them getting countered here quite reliably. I would love to see Reynor go up to a quick Hive and then get that Roach upgrade. I wonder if he's just going to use the Roaches, though, to maybe get up towards Ultralisks instead. So in the current version of StarCraft, Roaches are very much so like a stepping stone to try and survive until Hive. Looks like the Queen's decided to be a little bit adventurous. Evo Chamber block is nice. Second Evo Chamber also is researching an upgrade. Ooh, this... That's painful. That's a lot of drones for a very small amount of units. I almost wonder if Reynor there was hovering over an upgrade and was trying to read what it does. 19 drones for only, well, 3 Hellions is ridiculous. We don't see that anymore in modern StarCraft. Anyways, we have +1 missile, which is usually indicative of Zerg wanting to stick around on a, well, missile-based army, right? Usually, if you want to go Ultras, you would go melee here. Even if you're making Roaches for now, you would be starting the melee upgrade just to be able to have those, well, Ultras and the Zerglings benefit from that later on into the game. There's the concussive upgrade yet again here for ByuN, who's now already, well, enjoying the third base. Second factory. We'll probably have a fourth command center as well in a little bit. This is, by the way, the way at which pro gamers test out new patches and custom mods and all the rest of it. I know a lot of us, when we get new tools, when we get new toys, would immediately gravitate towards using those new toys, right? That's, I guess, how a lot of players play StarCraft. But pro gamers, especially when there's money on the line, they are willing to experiment, but usually the way that things get done is that somebody makes like one upgrade, they focus on that very heavily, and then it's up to the opponent to try and counter it. And then over the course of many hundreds of games, the new meta becomes more established, right? Rather than them gravitating immediately to the new Ultralisk research, maybe getting Vampiric Ultras sounds kind of insane to, yeah, pretty much all of us. They're just trying to win, man. They're playing to win. They don't really care so much about playing entertaining games. But I'm pretty sure at some point throughout this series, we will see the players forced to make some of those adjustments. At least I hope so. I mean, it's a best of 7. It's the finals of a tournament of this particular mod. I mean, we should certainly see it, right? And this is a quick Hive. I really wonder how this upgrade would work, assuming Reynor is going to get it. Is his supply count just going to drop by 14 when that upgrade finishes? He's getting a Hydra Den right now too, so I wonder if maybe he does want to go into Lurkers here momentarily. We'll have to look up at exactly what those units do, but let's see. Hive is done right now. Do we get it? 200 minerals, 200 gas. We have the money, Reynor. He's getting link speed. I wouldn't be surprised if he throws down a Lurker Den and Adrenal Glands and goes into +1 melee here in a moment. Oh no, he's getting it! He's getting it! So again, it's called Bifurcated Incubation, and this reduces the supply cost of Roaches to 1. So right now they're 2. Reynor is planning on swarming the map with Roaches. Honestly, kind of a cool little... I don't even know what this is. Is this like built into the game, or did somebody custom make this for the mod? I don't know. Looks kind of sick. Now, it seems that a big attack here is imminent for ByuN. He is currently sitting on the watchtower. I would love to try and find out what the Hydras have, though. So, the Hydras, if I can try and glance away. Man, this is when I wish I had individual eyeball control, you know? So I can use one for reading the patch and then the other one for looking at the screen. Hydras no longer have nanomuscular swell. Instead, they have a thing called Ancillary Carapace. Hive Tech upgrade for Hydras. Okay. Hydras take 1 less damage from air units for each ground carapace upgrade they have. Okay. So, if we indeed have a lot of air units, this might very well be something that Reynor's going to focus on. Very soon, though, I want to see his supply count drop, right? So very soon, we should see an additional 20 supply open up right here for Reynor with this upgrade finishing up. We'll have to see how that works out. It's very odd. We never really have upgrades like that in StarCraft 2 as it is. So let's see. 200, 200 right now. And in 10 seconds, is it going to go down to, if I understand correctly then, to 183? Is that the plan? Right now? Yep. How weird. Oh, what is this? That's got to be a Ravager upgrade. And this, I think, is for the Hydralisk. That's the one that increases, apparently, the amount of tankiness they have from area units. Reynor now using the additional supply, not for Roaches, though. He wants to try and now open up that additional supply for Zerglings and Hydras instead. The Marine Marauder Medevac push, though, is being extremely scary. Roach counterattack, actually quite sweet. He's going to put in a lot of work. I want to see what the Ravager upgrade does, but I'm a little bit afraid of missing a big fight. Yeah, some good fungals over here. That's going to make life way better. And while he's thinking about moving forward, I don't know about this, Reynor. I'm afraid that we're going to see the siege tanks blast everything apart. Dude, that animation on the siege tank shots may be my favorite thing so far in the mod. Am I crazy? Am I loco? I might be, actually. Yeah, I might be. Yeah, that's the username I've been... Anyways, nice attack over here at the bottom. ByuN is going to be able to snipe that hatchery. Yeah, there's a lot of alternate animations baked into the game. I guess this is one that technically didn't make the cut or something, but it's pretty sick, man. Maybe it's custom made? I don't know. Reynor does lose 2 hatcheries. And while he may have a lot of supply available, and he's going to get a rapid expulsion as well, which is funny because that was my nickname in college. And anyways, he is going to have that available, and we'll have to look up exactly what it does in just a moment. While he will be able to get rid of this, right? He's going to be able to get rid of this army. He took a lot of losses, and that's the main issue. I don't think you can really go ahead and counterattack with this type of army very well. So rapid expulsion. What does it do? Ravager. Yes, it looked like a Ravager upgrade. 100 minerals, 100 gas. Reduces the length delay for corrosive biles. Ah. So normally corrosive biles have like I think it's a 4-second cast time. Although don't quote me on that. I guess this reduces it to like maybe 1 or 2 seconds instead. Interesting. What about ghosts? We have ghosts coming up right now here for the Terran. So the snipe lease range has been reduced from 20 to 16. Snipe damage from 170 to 130. Plus 40 versus psionic. Snipe cooldown has been increased. Snipe energy has been reduced. The speed of the unit has been reduced. The life of the unit has been reduced. The light tag has been removed. Okay. They do deal more damage, though, against, I guess, light units in particular. Another nice drop over here on the right side of the map. So Patch's reasoning is that the 5.0.16 version of Snipe doesn't allow much counterplay. So Snipe has been adjusted to improve this aspect. The Ghost auto attack buff has been reverted since the Ghost is already a powerful spellcaster and the light tag has been removed in favor of an overall HP reduction. Okay, so nothing too crazy on the Ghost. At least not compared to many of the other units. What about the Lurker? Lurker. Their movement speed has been increased. The burrow speed has been reduced. Seismic Spine's research time has been increased. Remove the Adaptive Talons upgrade. Ah, okay. So they have like a default burrow speed that's a little bit quicker, but they do not have the burrow upgrade anymore to increase it to the current speeds in the live version of the game. So he says, I personally feel that the balance between Lair and Hive Tech Lurkers is off. Lair Tech Lurkers feel weak and Hive Lurkers feel too strong. This is intended to make Lurkers feel more viable earlier, I guess, but then obviously less powerful later on, which I think is very fair reasoning. I've mentioned it many times, Lair Tech Lurkers are kind of pointless. Hive Tech Lurkers are too good. So this is supposed to make them a little bit more of like a middle ground. Still though, is that middle ground going to even be really useful? Man, he just got blasted. He was getting himself a Nidus Worm to try and retreat, but ByuN jumped at the opportunity to snipe that army. In the meantime, though, we have the Zerg attack moving in through the left side. Command Center takes a bit of a bruising. Nothing all too crazy. Reynor actually doing a really nice job. Climbing back into, yeah, control of this game. He's been in a lot of trouble so far throughout this match. He took a good economy early on, but then maybe a bit of a miscalculation against this army over here. There's a reason we normally see Vipers on Eternity's Edge. Just so you can blinding cloud all of those siege tanks, although I don't even know if Vipers still have that. Normally that would be what you do. I'm assuming Vipers still have it. They actually have a phantom attack. Ah, okay. So just like High Templar, just like Infestors now, apparently Vipers have a phantom attack as well. Consume damage is increased, consume duration has been increased as well, and the consume energy per second gained is reduced. So I guess the reducibility, or the consumability rather, has been reduced in strength. Which is also fair, I think. It's a little bit too powerful. Zerg counterattack yet again. I wonder if you can do like a remax with Roaches. It's gonna feel really weird to make like 50 Roaches late into the game, but it could certainly be something you can play. I don't think it would be the end of the world. By the way, what about command centers? Command center. 400 minerals! What? What idiot would make command centers 400? Oh my god, big fungals coming in from the top over here of this particular fight. Dude, imagine StarCraft 2 with command centers that are 400 minerals. Crazy concept. Alright, they're 400 minerals apparently. They also have a cargo space that's been increased from 5 to 8 by default. Huh. We never really see people use that much, but I guess that's something you can definitely buff. A couple of snipies going down yet again. Man, the ghosts. Maybe they're reduced in strength across the board, but their damage against light is not bad, huh? Zorklings and Hydras both being light. Yeah, I think certain changes go too far, man. Making their command center 400 minerals. That's crazy. That goes really far. Maybe we should, we should. It's probably the least popular thing that Blizzard has changed in like the last 5 years of StarCraft 2, I will say. I know there's some Terrans out there like, yeah, awesome change, I love it. I think fundamentally it's just bad, right? Balance-wise, I don't really care so much about it. I think it's just not very interesting of a change. Increasing turtling, I'm not a fan. What about any siege tank changes? Right, we've been seeing a lot of siege tanks. I'm curious to see if they really have anything other than what I mentioned already. So, they have automated retraction. Another one of my college nicknames. So this is a research you can get inside of the factory that allows medevacs to load siege tanks in siege mode. Right. So automated retraction. It's a beautiful thing. There's also a new upgrade called Crucio Dampener. This is in the factory tech lab. Ooh. Okay, we'll have to look up what this does in just a moment. There's another upgrade for the siege tanks that we may very well see in just a moment. Called Crucio Dampener. Reduces the siege tank's friendly fire to biological and light units by 75, but you need to have a factory tech lab and then also an armory out in order to go for the research. Now, we already have an armory out. I think he's making the swap on over towards Terran Mech right now at this stage in the game. That's pretty sick. Curious to see how that's going to work out. And the new siege tank, siege mode attacks. The impact model apparently has been made by somebody else called Oh, I don't know how to pronounce your name. This is how it's written. How do you pronounce that? I don't know. Anyways, that's apparently an improvement for the visual effect. So not something that was already cooked into the game, but something that I guess one of the contributors to this particular mod added. 17 lurkers. My god. Reynor just smashed his piggy bank. And is making a whole lot of them. So what's this? Engineering Bay. New upgrade called Fire Suppression Protocol. Okay. Equips all Terran buildings with fire suppression drones, which very slowly repair buildings up to 50% HP. Okay. Free of cost. So that's something we've seen as well in campaigns quite a bit. It's pretty interesting. I think a lot of these changes actually, as we have a fungal over here, I think a lot of these changes are also inspired by some of the campaign adjustments that you have in SC2. All right, the lurkers though, putting in the work here. Tactical nuke. Sure, why not? Don't know if that's been adjusted in any way. Let me try and see. This seems to be a very long game. No, tactical nuke does not show up with anything when I Control F the document, so I'm guessing they're probably mostly the same or very likely identical as we're all used to. I gotta say though, like so far, even though a lot of these changes, maybe in isolation, sound a little crazy. So that's gotta, by the way, be the siege tank upgrades coming in right now. So one of them allows you less friendly fire to friendlies. And then the other one allows you to get picked up by medevacs while sieged up. The automatic retraction protocol. So I think what the automatic retraction does is that it then unsieges the tank when you pick it up while sieged up. Interesting one, actually. So the siege tank falls off a fair amount in Terran versus Zerg and Terran versus Protoss late game, is what it says for the reasoning. As you reach higher levels of vehicle weapons, not only does this increase the damage dealt to enemies, but also deals damage dealt to your own units, which makes the siege tanks less viable versus Zerglings and Zealots. This change aims to give siege tanks more viability in TVP and TVZ late game by giving them an upgrade which reduces the amount of friendly fire and friendly damage taken from a splash. That's cool. I like that, actually. That seems like a very reasonable change. Yeah, and that's I guess what I was trying to bring up. Like, a lot of these changes in isolation for current StarCraft would maybe be a little crazy, but it makes sense, right? Like, nobody would really complain about siege tanks getting a late game buff. Nobody really complains much about reducing the strength of lurkers in the late game, but making them stronger earlier on in the game. A lot of cool adjustments here that I do really like. And honestly, right, there's been this patch recently gained a lot of popularity. Mostly because of 5.0.16, because Blizzard obviously introduced a bunch of changes, like, for example, the very controversial command center change, but there's been a bunch of other ones as well that people complained about. A lot of people were like, yo, this is interesting, I guess, Blizzard, but how about you have a look at PatchesSC Mod? And I think this is how word got around a lot more. The mod's been around for a while, but this has now, well, prompted a lot of show matches, a lot of tournaments like this particular one as well, and there's upcoming events for this one too. For maybe, yeah, Blizzard to pay attention to and be like, yo, this is far more interesting than what we have been cooking up. Maybe we can take some inspiration from some of these adjustments instead. Yeah, and I don't entirely disagree. I like a lot of this way better than 300 Minerals Command Centers, right? Like, fair enough. If you guys are interested, by the way, I'm more than keen to check out some of the Protoss games as well. Circling run by over here on the right side. Just let me know. Maybe I'll check it out. There's the Crucio Dampener. So the siege tank count is going up. It's very funky, actually. So normally you don't go that many tanks. Normally siege tanks are not really your go-to in the late game. But this is effectively a bio-based army, but then with 5 factories in total. He is going into some of the mech upgrades too, so I guess the Marines are being swapped out for Hellions and Hellbats, but not a terrible idea. Nice snipe here yet again, another hatchery. Dude, this is a beautiful game, actually. It's been a little all over the place as I'm obviously trying to make sense of what we're seeing. Trying to explain, trying to read, but this is a very back and forth, reasonable match. Nobody here has gone for anything utterly broken that immediately looks too powerful to me. And there may be some of that in this mod, right? But again, we have been testing this for some time already. Like, it's been tested, so I guess it's not too weird that things do seem to be pretty refined across the board. But this is a solid macro game between some of the very best players that we have in the game. Siege tank visual is awesome. Ah, less friendly fire dealt to the SCVs. Night is Worm inside of the main base. Yeah, honestly, a big deal, man. This siege tank, I mean, it's already got 24 kills, but I think it would have had a few more. Actually, does it say only biological? Or how exactly does it work? Maybe it doesn't even get affected by SCVs. All right, Spire, either way, coming up right now for Reynor. Planetary Fortress is going to finish up. ByuN's going to be able to resecure the bases yet again. So this expo over here should certainly be the Terrans. Usually the main base we're skirmishing over in the late game on this map is the one in the far bottom left. Reynor's been mining that several times already. Very cool. Very cool. So any changes to Hellions? I don't think so. Infernal Pre-Igniter now grants an additional +5 damage versus shields. Oh, okay. So the Blue Flame upgrade for Hellions allows you to deal more damage versus shields. That's obviously specifically against Protoss. Not relevant for this matchup. So the Hellbat has their biological tag removed. Their base HP is increased by 10. Infernal Pre-Igniter now grants an additional +8 bonus damage as well versus shields. Movement speed has been increased. Cargo size in a medevac has been reduced to 2 rather than 4. And the damage point also has been changed. Okay, so it seems like the changes to the Hellbats and the Hellions are mostly just to make mech more viable in TVP. Nice attack here by Reynor. Obviously, though, extra movement speed on Hellbats can still be super handy as well for Terrans in this matchup. The fact that they're no longer biological means that they cannot be healed by medevacs anymore. So it's one of the weird things about Hellbats that I've always found kind of weird. So Hellions are mechanical, but Hellbats, aka the same unit but transformed, are biological and mechanical. Meaning that you can both repair them with an SCV and heal them with a medevac. You could even do so simultaneously. I always thought this was kind of weird. How in the world is a car biological? I mean, it's a science fiction video game, right? I guess maybe I shouldn't complain about it too much, but as far as the transformation goes, it doesn't make a ton of sense. Reynor, though, going in, I don't know if this makes a lot of sense either. That is going to be a meat grinder and a half, my man. Siege tank count is high. And while the lurkers are trying their best to keep this army at bay, yeah, I think retreating may be the best call. Likewise, we have ByuN now moving in as well in the bottom left-hand corner. Double Spire, by the way, here for Reynor. He wants to maybe go for a Broodlord transition or something along those lines. Swarm hosts are also entirely remade. Maybe we can get to that in just a little bit. That would be interesting too. Liberators. Anything weird going on there? Let me try and find out. Liberator has been increased in gas cost. So 150 minerals and 150 gas. Sight range increased. Advanced ballistics anti-ground range increased from 2 to 3. Anti-ground now prioritizes units with higher max HP. Okay, so threat first, then workers, and then the highest max HP. Okay. Minimap radius has been increased, so it matches the size of medevacs. And it has a new Liberator anti-air missile and impacted models. Ah, okay. So that's the same idea, I guess, as the siege tank change. Just a visual change. So the range upgrade has been reverted to the original 3 range to compensate for the 5.0.15 nerf, where they're no longer granted vision of the... Okay. By making the anti-ground prioritize higher HP units, it makes the Liberator better versus more A-move type compositions like Lingbane Ultras. Okay. 11 Broodlords coming up though for Reynor. He's making the swap from those lurkers. Now realizing that maybe they weren't really the right choice to go for. So the Broodlings now deal more damage versus structures. That's the only change made to the Broodlords. When they're attacking structures, they deal from 20 damage to now 35 damage to structures. So an extra 15 bonus damage to structures is actually significant. Caduceus Reactor still coming up. Advanced Ballistics also on the horizon for ByuN. The problem, though, with Brutes, obviously, is that they're slow, man. Snipies, not bad. Still, though, that's a lot of Brutes. Yeah, Ghost Count is not going to be sufficient, and because of it, we're now going into Thors. Lurkers here as well on the right side. It allows that base to stay alive for a little bit longer. Reynor going in for a counterattack yet again. Siege tanks still dealing some friendly fire, at least. I think it's versus light and then only biological. So against other siege tanks, they're still going to be able to deal just as much friendly fire. I really like how swarmy the Zerg is feeling, though. Obviously, this is a sample size of now 2 games. But Reynor's swarmy army here is really sick. I do really like it. I wonder if you could go into... So transfusion is nice. I wonder if you could go into Swarm Queens in the late game here as well. So there's supposed to be a hatchery upgrade, right? And there's still a mineral-only unit, if I'm not mistaken. So if you can add queens that are better off creep as part of your late-game unit composition, that gives you an alternative mineral-based attacking unit to Zerglings. Quite like that. Reynor not really considering it, I don't think, but definitely something he could at the very least give a shot. I don't think it would be terrible. Anything different with Vikings? Viking, yeah, they have an additional base armor, and they have an upgrade called Ironclad Ignition. Grants +4 armor to the Viking for 2 seconds after starting the transformation, giving them a temporary speed boost as well after lifting up in the air. Okay, so you're encouraged to use the transformation ability on Vikings more? That's kind of sick. Don't know if it's really too useful in this instance, though, because they're really just made to try and deal with the Brute Lords. Advanced Ballistics getting targeted down. Planetary Fortress also fell. Base in the bottom left still around. Dude, this is a sick game. I gotta say, like, I didn't know what to expect getting into this best of 7. Normally, with custom mods like this kind of one, right? The games are like 3 minutes long because somebody is abusing something that is utterly busted. But this is both players trying their absolute best to beat the opponent, but neither of them achieving that job. Sick game. Beautiful game. This expansion, though, the one that ByuN has been missing out on the entire game long, is a big deal. Reynor has been harvesting a bunch of the resources as well in the bottom left, and that also adds up. A lot of these mineral fields, though, are still available. I think ByuN may very well have to give up on this expansion and go for the bottom left instead. It might still make the game playable for him in the long run, but the main issue he's running into right now is that he's running out of cash. No more resources available here for the South Korean Terran. I think Reynor's swarmy approach, the constant tech switches as well, I think it's made it all just a little bit too hard. ByuN's economy has dried up. ByuN's also been going for both bio as well as Ghost, and then also Mech, and then vice versa. Again, getting a lot of expensive upgrades in the process too. And I think he's probably paying the price for it right now. That's one of the reasons, by the way, why a lot of players will not necessarily, when there's money on the line, go for the most experimental changes. Because you kind of end up diluting your other army compositions a little bit, right? So ByuN maybe drying up a bit as far as the resource count goes, but we saw in the previous game that he's not likely to just go ahead and give up. But likewise to the previous game, I think what we are experiencing here is a Terran player slowly fizzling out. Reynor getting Neural Parasite, I don't disagree. If you can take control of the Thors in particular, it's gonna make life pretty nice. Now, Reynor is also not rich, by the way. If the siege tanks manage to get some really good shots in, if Reynor takes a poor engagement, this is still winnable for ByuN. If we look right now at the army size, Reynor is ahead, but not by a very significant margin. Obviously, though, ByuN right now is the aggressor. That means that the main fight will likely take place on creep. But then again, we don't really know how these late-game interactions really work out. Reynor's going Queen, Ling, Hydra, Viper, Brute Lord, Infested, right? Like, we're getting a little bit of everything. Is this too early for the Zerg to engage? Transfuses are nice. Wait a second. I was ready to call it, but maybe that's not correct. Fungal growth here is nice, but Reynor decided to engage before all of the Infestor spawned, and he lost a large chunk of his army. He does still have a good chunk of units as well going in for the counterattack, though. They're gonna have to go home before the fight really, truly begins. The speed disadvantage, though, on those Brute Lords is really hurting Reynor now, as he lost quite a few of them before this engagement really starts. The Vikings having a good time. Keep in mind, they're now also more powerful when you transform them, so this isn't really just a useless unit after the Brute Lords have been taken care of. I think the Brute Lords are going to be taken care of. There's just 3 remaining now. Zerglings, though, together with the Hydras going in for the counter-offensive. Reynor, honestly, cutting it kind of close here. Oh, really? It's ByuN who's going home? I feel like 99% of Zerg players watching this would have all army hotkeyed this army back a long time ago. And I think it would have not been a terrible choice. But Reynor has managed to now bring his opponent's economy down to, well, 0. And he's also forced his opponent to come back home from what is effectively an all-in. The weird thing is, though, that Reynor's eco now also has taken a beating. Look at the production tab. It's been empty. It's been empty for like a minute. Neither player really able to afford much of anything. We still have a tactical nuke, by the way, but no more ghosts to cast it. Bunch of Zerglings in the main. Keep in mind that the win condition is destroying your opponent's structures, but we are a long ways off of destroying the opponent's structures. Honestly, though, forcing all of the orbital commands to lift, making sure that there's no scan available, is going to give Reynor a perfect opportunity to use Neural Parasite. But honestly, at this point, I would be a little bit worried anyways if I'm ByuN. There we go. Neural Parasites are going to take control of some of the most expensive units that Terran is capable of making. And with those traitors switching sides, is Reynor, who closes out a very solid game number 2. That will take us to Sanctuary 3. Honestly, one of the best games of TVZ I've seen all year. The one that we just watched. I mean, I didn't really get to watch it as much as I would have liked to because I spent half the game looking at my second monitor. But I hope you got to catch most of all the action. I need a dedicated observer for this, man. Like a dedicated cameraman. Just to keep everything flowing. But that was a beautiful game. Really well done. Also, really well done by Patches, by the way. Obviously, both players were experimenting a little bit. But that game coming down to such a narrow finish is incredible. And this is one of the really cool things, right? That Blizzard has always done really nicely. The editor is allowing players so much freedom to make their own stuff. The StarCraft 2 editor in particular gives you a ton of control. And even though I've never really used it much myself, from what I understand, it's actually pretty easy to learn as well. Like, if you want to make your own balance patch, you can figure out how to do it. It's not rocket science, and I think it's sick, man. Having a dedicated editor like that, obviously it's not necessarily the most important thing when you're making a game, but man, does it add a lot of life, even when, well, Blizzard may be mostly hands-off these days. The community itself will try to come up with some of its own stuff, right? It's really nice to see. All right, it's going to be a double Rex opener yet again here for ByuN, who, yeah, has been playing some really solid StarCraft, but so far it's not reflected on the scoreboard just yet. Now, I will say that I think Reynor is probably one of the players. Like, in my mind, there's like two types of pro gamers. There's the pro gamer that's really good because of raw mechanical skill, and then there's the ones that are a little bit more flexible with adjusting to new updates and new patches and all the rest of it. Obviously, both of these players have really good fundamental skills, but I think Reynor is definitely more... He's more willing to experiment, also in, like, regular StarCraft. If you compare that to, for example, like, Serral's style, Reynor is far more chaotic, right? I think that's the right word to use. Definitely more chaotic as well than ByuN. So this is certainly something where I think right from the outset, right from the get-go, he's probably slightly more favored just because of that style that he likes to go for. It's also the way that Terran works. Terran is a little bit more rigid, I suppose, with Zerg obviously having the freedom of the larva, and, well, you can just make one structure and then have a full army available. Whereas for Terran, if you want to make 1 million siege tanks, you're gonna have to make 1 million factories, right? So you're not really encouraged to experiment as much, but yeah, Reynor really trying out a bunch of different things. I would have liked to actually see the Roach mechs coming into play, but I thought about the Roach upgrade allowing you to make more Roaches. Reynor thought of the Roach upgrade as a way to basically smooth out and polish out the transition towards Hydra Link later on into the game, right? Hydra Lurker obviously transitioning a little bit more smoothly when you don't have to sacrifice your own Roach army so much, which I guess makes sense. Now, what is this? We have a quick Evo chamber here and a very quick Pneumatized Carapace. Wait, have they moved Dropper Lords? Hold up, I need to find this. Overlord. Ah, Transport Overlord now requires Evolution Chamber instead of a lair. Now, the Transport Overlord is also really slow. It's been reduced from 1.28 to 0.85. But this is allowing us... I mean, obviously, Pneumatized Carapace is nice. This is allowing us a pretty bloody fast Overlord drop. A Zerg all-in? In the early stages of Terran versus Zerg? That's not a Banelink bust? Well, well, well. I haven't seen it in years. I wish I was joking, but quite literally. We don't generally see Zergs go for any sort of early game cheeses, because all of them hit after the first Banshee is out. Normally, the timing on the first Banshee, yeah, is this one right here. ByuN opening blind triple command center. He did go for a bunch of Reapers, but he does not see the Swarm advancing until it's already in his natural expansion. And this is problematic, man. The Dropper Lords are going to be unloading, though. Problem is there even enough Zerg? Keep in mind that the Queens can now transfuse off creep again. Lings are trying to work away at the front door as well, but excellent little bit of repair micro there by ByuN. And you know what? Maybe this all-in is cool, but it didn't work. Yeah, it didn't work. ByuN's crisis management may be a little bit too good. If the depot would have fallen, and then the... yeah. That's also going to repair it up for a bunch of HP. Actually, it's got an insane amount of health. 622. Some adjustments there as well, for sure. Yeah, this is a cool play. But ByuN very quickly preventing the reinforcing links from getting in really turned out to be the key move. Now, finally, there is an opening in this expansion, but ByuN is going to have triple mule production here. I think you can only really call GG here as the Zerg. Nicely done by ByuN. Okay, that will take us to the map, a washout. What happened to that supply depot drop? Let me try and see if I can find it. So there's a lot of building adjustments as well. Probably the least exciting thing to read about. So I didn't, or not at least very much. But I think the supply drop ability definitely got some sort of boost. So the supply drop max health bonus has been increased from 100 to 250. Supply drop total healing, however, has been reduced from 400 plus 100 to 0 plus 250. The supply drop health and bonus delay has been reduced from 4 seconds to 235. Okay, added max health, increased visual effect. So the current supply drop heal timing feels unintuitive and unnecessarily difficult to use, while the amount of healing it provides is too strong. This version makes the ability more well-rounded and intuitive to use, so the large buff to the supply depot's max HP. It encourages using supply drops to fortify depot walls, and the new health bonus matches the supply drop animation, improving visual clarity. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Pretty sick. Oh, also, and this I did not quite notice yet, reactors and tech labs can now be salvaged for 75% of the cost while not attached to a building. So this allows you to refund unused things later on into the game. Or maybe you can, I don't know, use it for a very specific timing attack and squeeze out something very precise, rather than being able to destroy your own stuff. That's kind of cool. Bunker build time also reduced by 2 seconds. Ah. Wouldn't be a StarCraft patch, I guess, without adjusting the bunker build time. Intended as a soft buff to help Terran defend early Protoss aggression, since gateway units have received various base unit buffs. This will also have a small impact on offensive bunker play. It also says in very small font, David Kim would be proud. So in the early days of StarCraft 2, the bunker build time got reduced and increased every patch. They just kept going back and forth between different bunker build times. It's kind of ironic. David Kim would be proud. Yeah. The lead balance designer in the early days of StarCraft. Very cool to see. Alright. Reaper trying its very best. Once more, it seems like we are going to be going for a good old double Reaper opener. I think, by the way, that Reynor could have executed that previous game a little bit differently. Right? Like going for the unload on top of all the Marines. I don't know about that one. I don't think he would do that again. He thought maybe he had his opponent exactly where he wanted him to, but then ByuN just, pulled off the perfect defense. Okay. Triple command center available very soon. Factory on the back of it. I'm actually excited to see some Protoss games as well. I really wonder what happened to the gateways. Did we keep the gateway changes? Maybe not. I don't want to spoil myself. We'll check it out. We'll check it out soon. I think it'll be a pretty fun follow-up as well. Anyhow, there are a bunch of announced tournaments as well for this particular mod, by the way, so I'll go ahead and actually link the Ko-Fi of patches down below in the description of the video too, in case you want to go ahead and directly support this type of work. Obviously, it does take quite a lot of time, quite a lot of thought, just to be able to implement and organize everything. So there's also an upgrade for the barracks that requires a fusion core that's researchable in the tech lab on the barracks called Accelerated Training. It's 150 minerals, 150 gas, takes 80 seconds to research, and accelerates the training of all units from a barracks with a tech lab by 30%. Huh. Okay. So that's very useful specifically for Marauders, I would imagine, and then also for Ghosts. I don't hate it, though. Like, that's pretty much all these changes, right? Like, I'm looking at the list, and for every single one of them that I've read so far, I think it's reasonable. Like, it doesn't sound extreme. Could you introduce something like that to the current version of StarCraft 2? Probably. I mean, it's costly enough for it to, like, matter, right? But then it would also help out in the late game a little bit. It's very common for Terrans to start off with 1 barracks, then go 3, then to go 5, and then to go 8. They never really go beyond 8. But sometimes you kind of want to go beyond 8, right? Now, obviously, you could just make a couple more. But an upgrade like that in a long macro game, aka the one that we just saw, ByuN, I don't know if you researched it, I don't think so. But anyways, I think it would go, yeah, really nicely in a game like that. Interesting. Double upgrades coming up right now for our South Korean Terran player, who apparently is just going to be committing to the good old normal yet again. Anything changed to the factory? Added the ability to produce high impact mode Thors. Ah, okay. So obviously Thors have 2 different types. That makes sense. Yeah. Why can't you? I've never even really thought about this. I've just transformed my Thors. So obviously you can produce Hellbats out of a factory. Why can't you produce the alternative version of a Thor? Follow-up question. Should you be able to produce landed Vikings out of a starport? Hey, we have a Swarm Queen! We have a Swarm Queen! New Zerg unit. She's beautiful. She's bigger. Oh, that's Brenda. Brenda, welcome to the party. So basically, it's a stronger version of the Queen, but then she can't inject. Man, this is a crazy attack, though, here from ByuN. Yeah, the Hellbats are putting in so much work. Lovely push. Most of the Hellbats are now taken care of, but I think while the all-in the previous game did not work out favorably for the Zerg, this one, it's not even really an all-in, but this one is working out, not Brenda, this one's working out really nicely here for ByuN. A good old Hellbat push. Maybe you can't heal them anymore with Medevacs, but if you have enough of them, it can still be extremely useful. Yeah. And this is where you do keep the Zerg player honest, right? You skip out on both Roaches as well as Banelings. You open up with pure Queen Ling. You're basically begging to get roasted. Well, the Zerglings, that is. The Zerglings ended up getting roasted. Follow-up attack here from ByuN is gonna hurt, man. We have 2-2 as well coming up. It will be done in about a minute. And I'm afraid that that is going to be a power spike, or maybe even before that already. I'm afraid that that is a power spike that will be too large. Second factory. We'll probably have a 4th command center in just a bit. Widowmines added into the mix as well. More fire bats or hellbats here joining in the fray. A little bit of stutter step micro. Yeah. And even though 2-2 is still going to be a whiles off, it doesn't really matter too much. GG. And just like that, the score has been evened up. So real quick, let me try and read through the changes of the Swarm Queen in particular, because I think that's probably the most confusing part so far, right? So you can upgrade a regular queen for 50 minerals and then 1 additional supply to upgrade it into a Swarm Queen, aka Brenda. The Swarm Queen is effectively a stronger version of the Queen that has a bunch of upgrades and a bunch of abilities. So the first ability is Transfuse, right? I think we can all get used to that. Second ability is called Devour Drone. Consumes a target drone to produce 50 energy on the Queen. Okay. It can also put down a Creep Tumor. So there's an upgrade called Subdermal Creep Follicles. Subdermal? Subdermal. I don't know how to pronounce that. Subdermal Creep Follicles. That's in the Evolution Chamber at Lairtech. 150 minerals and 150 gas. Allows the Swarm Queen to passively generate creep as it walks. Bro, your queen is so big, she emits creep. Brenda is truly beautiful. There's also another upgrade called Osteoderm Reformation. Likewise, also in the Evo chamber, likewise also requires a lair. Increases the Swarm Queen's armor by 2. So it's like a chitinous plating, but then for queens. Yeah, that's cool, man. So obviously that's balanced around the fact that you can only make 1 queen out of 1 base at one time, right? Like, you're not going to be able to just make 20 queens out of your larva. It's kind of like the way that Protoss now produces out of gateways and Terrans now produce out of all of their structures. I like it. And obviously the Swarm Queen is something that we have from the Heart of the Swarm campaign. It's already cooked right into the base of StarCraft. I would not mind it if Blizzard were to implement something like that. It makes sense. Like, when you think about it, it makes sense. Increase the overall strength of hatcheries, reduce the overall strength of queens, and then create an upgraded version of a queen that can't inject. Right? Like, that makes sense in my mind. Because I think most of us are a little bit tired of the queen being the early game end-all be-all answer to everything. Right? That's ultimately what it feels like. The queen is a really, really strong unit. But just straight up nerfing the queen is going to be pretty much impossible. Because you end up, since there's no alternative, you end up just hamstringing Zerg's early game. So you have to make some bigger adjustments than just reducing the strength of the queen. Obviously, the queen has been reduced in strength a lot over the years as it is already. It used to be way more powerful than it is right now. But if you reduce the overall strength of the unit and then, yeah, allow it to maybe transfuse off creep again to be upgraded into something else, give it some additional upgrades so you can go for an Evo chamber. I mean, I like it. I think it's cool. I don't know if we're going to see Reynor really experiment with it, because that does seem like something that's just going to require a little bit more time in the oven, right? It's going to be something that takes some time to actually figure out and refine. It's not uncommon, by the way, for players to just sign up for a custom mod tournament if there's money on the line without ever really having played the custom mod. That's pro gamers for you. I don't know. I don't want to call out either of these two, but you will have players that are like, oh, there's money on the line? Ah, whatever. I'll play. If there's like $1,000 or whatever, I'll compete. Sure, whatever. So maybe that's, I mean, maybe they've practiced a little bit. I think that these two probably have practiced a little bit. But certainly winging it is not considered to be out of the question. I really like that Hellbat push though in the previous game from ByuN. I was yapping about a lot of unrelated stuff. I did not quite catch that he was making more Hellions than what we normally see, but certainly has a lot of potential. You know, the one thing that always has kind of surprised me about professional StarCraft 2 players? I would say that probably more than half of them have never completed the campaign. Isn't that nuts? Like, you could, like, the StarCraft 2 campaigns, first and foremost, they're excellent. They're really good. But many of them have never played the campaign. They've never touched it. All they do is go to the 1v1 section of StarCraft 2 and play. That's all they do. This is crazy to me. Especially since a lot of them have been in a slump at some point, right? You may not necessarily feel like practicing, even though it's kind of your quote-unquote job. Right? Seems like a decent way to maybe guilt trip yourself into saying you're practicing while just playing the campaigns, right? At the bare minimum, it doesn't take that long. Anyways. That's the contradiction. For a lot of competitive players, they don't care at all about the campaign. But then for a lot of, well, like 95% of the player base in general, the only thing they end up playing is the campaign. Because that's where a lot of people are like, oh, I'll try out the multiplayer, and then they get smashed in the face. And they realize that the campaign was fun, maybe co-op was fun, but competitive is a little bit too sweaty. And then some people end up watching the game instead and realize, oh, I really like competitive. I really enjoy watching competitive, but I don't necessarily enjoy playing it competitively. Shout out to all of you, by the way. That, I think, is probably the majority of the StarCraft 2 fan base these days. People that I've played maybe once upon a time, but don't really either have the time for it these days, or have realized how difficult this game is, right? You kind of have to get an appreciation on how hard it is to play this game well. And at that point, you can also watch really good players compete and realize that what they're doing is nearly impossible to execute. Yeah, I think it's one of the really cool things about StarCraft in general. Anyhow, I don't know if Reynor and ByuN specifically have played the campaigns, but I would not be surprised if they haven't. Reynor again going Infestation Pit. So despite the fact he just got hell-batted out of his mind, he did not go for any real adjustments, I don't think. No hellbats, yeah, at least going across the map in this particular game. He may have made a couple of changes. I wonder if it's possible in a pinch, right? Hypothetically speaking. Say you see the Terran going in right now with a bunch of units. Could you just take all of your queens, make new ones to replace the ones you're gonna upgrade into Swarm Queens, but you upgrade all of your queens into Swarm Queens, and then you consume like 5 of your own drones to give each of them a transfusion? Would that be possible? Would that have been enough for Reynor to hold the Hellbat all-in in the previous game? Yeah, I wonder. It's again a really quick Infestor transition here for Reynor. Lovely little bit of firing here, though, by ByuN. That pocket is working out pretty nicely for all of those Terran Marines. Quick Hive, man. A really fast Hive. Yeah, the fact that the Swarm Queen is a mineral-only unit is kind of crazy. I think in Heart of the Swarm in the campaign is 25 gas. But effectively, for 50 additional minerals, you can upgrade Brenda, Karen, and Susan to become more powerful. When you're using them defensively anyways, I guess you need to have multiple control groups of your queens at that point, right? Not really an issue for Reynor, but for many of us humans, it would be difficult. Nice fungal growth over here. Ooh, one of the Widow Mines does also connect. So for a second he was attacking his own Infestor, but no, that was the Lynx trying to attack that Widow Mine, successfully killing it. And this was a bit of an anti-timing here for ByuN. He decided to engage before 2-2. Honestly, a big mistake. 2-2 is a huge power spike. Throwing away your army right before that point, not optimal. Would actually like to see what the additional changes are to the Infestor. So I talked about the changes that they made to the Infested Terran specifically. The removal of Microbial Shroud, but I wonder what is written down about the rest of the unit. Maybe if we get a little bit of peace in this game, we'll have a look at it. Circling run-bys though, left, right, and center. Terran drop as well inside of the main base, and then a push right over here through the middle. Looks like the Ling run-by over at the third base. Does not catch a lot of Lings. No council on the hatchery in the middle though, it seems, as Reynor takes another nosedive as far as the supply count goes. His Ling run-by, achieving barely anything. Wow, these Lings were on the other side of the map and in the bases, but killed only 2 SCVs. Okay, so, the Infestor added a duration bar for units affected by fungal growth. Strategic recall and mass recall can no longer target fungal units, yeah. Transport can no longer load units while fungal. Removed Microbial Shroud, and the Infested Neural Parasite research time has been increased. And then the Incubate Infested one for Infested Terrans. Okay. So new ability called Launch Infested. Launches a stored Infested at the target location. Infested Terran has 75 life. Free unit design is always tricky, so now they're no longer free. Oh, Infested Terrans no longer have a timed life. Instead, they lose HP at 0.4 HP a second. Since they have 45 HP, they can last about 2 minutes. There's also an upgrade for the Infestor called Tissue Preservation that allows the Infested Terran to increase their health by 5 and involve them to last twice as long while the Infested Terran is burrowed. What? Okay, so each Infestor can make 4. You can launch them and you can upgrade them, and then when they're launched, they lose HP over time, but if you upgrade them and burrow them, they last longer. Right. That seems like I need to make a lot of these types of units before it's gonna, you know, be worth researching all of these things type of stuff, but I'm sure there's some more experimental players out there that have been giving this a try. Sounds cool, though. Zergling run-bys over here are getting cleaned up. Right now, even though the original run-by of Lynx didn't really achieve that much, we did have 27 SCVs falling in total. That's a lot. You know one unit I haven't looked at yet? Widow Mines. As far as I can tell, they're mostly unchanged, but... Widow Mine? No, they're not unchanged either. Their build time has been increased. Their splash radius has also been increased. Drilling Claws upgrade moves to the armory. Drilling Claws cost increased. Burrowing a Widow Mine no longer sends the under attack alert to nearby units. And they have an upgrade called Shredder Missile. Upgrades the Widow Mine's missile to reduce impacted units' armor by 2 for 5 seconds. Does not affect massive units. So that is specifically for Terran versus Protoss, where the Widow Mine does lack in the mid-game. Yeah, sounds pretty good. Sounds pretty painful, I guess, if you're a Protoss player. Anyways. I know that for many Terrans out there, Protoss players experiencing pain is one of their favorite pastimes. Ooh, that was a beautiful fungal growth. Damn. All right, GG. Yeah, that's game over. This game was going so well for ByuN, but then the Ling Run Bice just dealt way too much damage, and his entire army got fungled. Jeez. Okay. That will take us to Rorschach. Match point right now for Reynor, who's been pretty greedy. Yeah, he's been pretty greedy. I like the Roach game that he played, but he's been really enjoying playing mass Zergling into straight Hive throughout this series. And while ByuN punished it really nicely with the fire bets or the hell bets, I keep calling hell bets fire bets these days, I don't know why. I never used to do that. Anyways, while he managed to counter it brilliantly in game number 4, well, so far, Reynor seems to have figured out a way to force it, right? To just go straight into a Hive every time. Okay. Man, a 12-worker start. Can you picture that? So I guess the idea is that you can start the game off a little bit more aggressively. What a crazy take. So rather than like... So I guess the idea is that it shaves like 45 seconds off of the early game. Since players are mostly just building up to 12 workers anyways, maybe it's not such a bad idea. Somebody write that down, send it to Blizzard. Let me look at some more of the fundamental changes. So the Mule. The Mule can now mine Vespene gas. 16 gas per trip for the Mule. A 2.5 time multiplier. By allowing mules to mine gas, it opens up new possibilities for tight new openings, which were previously Vespene limited. A mule mining Vespene is only worth 1.6 SCVs, while mule mining minerals is worth 2.5 SCVs, which adds significant trade-off when choosing to harvest additional Vespene. The small duration of adjustment prevents mules from expiring while carrying minerals, assuming they will never have dropped or have never been pulled off mining, right? So, yeah, their duration of the mule has been increased from 64.2 seconds to 64.5 seconds. And I'm sure you've seen this many times where a mule is returning minerals, and then about right over here, about, well, apparently 0.2 seconds or so, before it would hit the orbital command and return the final bit of minerals, it would expire, right? So pro gamers in the early game, what they usually do is manually pull the mule off. So when you still have APM to spare early, you will count the amount of trips, and when you see it won't be able to return the trip, you pull the mule off and let it expire right next to the mineral fields. Because if it does finish mining and then not return the minerals, those minerals are gone forever. You don't actually get those back. The mineral IRS would be very upset if they realize that this is how mineral laundering is done, right? It's something to keep in mind. So just polishing that out, giving an additional 0.3 seconds to the mule, it will guarantee that it actually completes the final trip, which is kind of nice. And I do kind of like the idea of mining Vespene. I don't mind it. Yeah, it's pretty cool. All right. Quick starport here. So this is a 2-1-1. Or, sorry, a 2 command center 1-1-1. Not a 2-1-1. That would be double barracks. But this is a 2CC 1-1-1 rather than triple command center. Not bad. Man, I would really like to see one of the players just go ham on one of the new changes. Right? They've been playing a very polished version of the game. But I would love to see Reynor go deep into Swarm Queen territory. Or maybe ByuN make some of the reworked Ravens. That's actually a unit I haven't really gotten to yet. But the Raven has apparently been completely changed. Yeah, they're now cheaper to build. Their build time is shorter. Their life has been increased. Their armor is reduced. They have a new ability called a Repair Drone. Drops a repair drone that repairs units at a rate of 13.6 HP a second. That's more than a medevac. Repair drones have 200 energy and restore 1 life per 1 energy. Heals 200 total life max. They also have a phantom auto attack now as a quality of life improvement, just like Vipers. Oh, we have Brenda's back! What's up, Brenda? Yo, look at Brenda, man. She's got a little bit of swag in her step. I think she has the same movement speed as the other queens, but because she's bigger, the animation's slower. Brenda, can you walk for us? Sorry, I know there's a fight going on, but Brenda. Oh, hey, Karen! Yo, there they go! Oh, there she comes. Ooh. Animation looks spicy. So, I guess these would be like your dedicated defense creep tumor queens. Oh, we're going mech. We're going mech. We're mixing, we're meching it happen. We're mixing things up here. Liberator goes around the side. Okay, Terran Mech has been adjusted a lot as well. This is going to be a chaotic game, I think. Bunch of Banelings here for Reynor now. Yeah, I think he's been playing this. Hey. Yeah, you can pretend to be like the rest of them, but you're not nearly as cool, dude. Look, I got a Queen Centipede over here. Anyways. Let me have a look at the mech units real quick, because I would imagine we're going to go for quite a few of them. So we did discuss the Hellion and the Hellbat changes. What about the Siege Tank? No, we did talk about the Siege Tank at length. Remember the retraction ability? What about the Thor? Thor ground attack. This is an interesting build, by the way, as he started off with a bunch of Marines, and now Hellbat's here. Huh. The Thor ground attack speed has been increased from 0.91 to 152. And their damage has been increased as well. The ground attack speed, rather, has been reduced. So their damage is increased, but the ground attack speed has reduced. So the slower attack with unchanged DPS pushes the Thor into a more clear anti-massive role, since it takes more time to deal with large groups of smaller units. Okay, not a bad idea. What about Cyclones, though? A very commonly changed unit, of course, in the multiplayer of StarCraft 2 over the last couple of years. So their build time is 3 seconds faster. The lock-on cooldown is half second slower. The vehicle weapon upgrades. The vehicle weapon upgrade, lock-on damage bonus. From +0 to +2. Lock-on no longer ignores armor. Lock-on damage. Change from spell to ranged. Ah, okay. So that's why they are now affected by upgrades then. That makes sense. I always thought it was kind of weird that the missile is considered a spell. Apparently no longer the case. Mag field lock-on damage bonus from +10 versus all to +20 versus armored. There's a new upgrade called Hurricane Engine. Requires the armory inside of a factory tech lab that increases the Cyclone movement speed to 532. So is that what this is? That's gotta be what this is. That looks like a Protoss upgrade. Am I crazy? Anyways, I would imagine that that is what the movement speed of the Cyclone looks like. So they're gonna be able to be on par, I would imagine, with the Hellions. Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all. Straight into a Hive yet again, though, for Reynor. We have 5 upgraded queens. Look at them. Is this the new mineral dump in the early game? Yeah, I guess so. They're beautiful. I would really like to see Reynor maybe commit to some of those upgrades as well inside of the Evo chamber for the Swarm Queen. But I don't think we're really going to go for that. Hurricane engines, by the way, indeed finishing up. Okay. So, Terran Mech. Oh, they're fast. Look at the Cyclones. Dang. They're zooming. They got some new type of gas, I guess, powering that thing. Oh my god. Well, you know what? You may be fast, but you're not quite as fast as a Zergling. Oof. Oof. That was horrible for ByuN. ByuN's sleeping for a little bit. He's like, I've got fast units. I'm never gonna be chased. Well, it turns out Reynor's not afraid of engaging you off creep. Absolute disaster right here for ByuN, man. Yeah, I don't know if Reynor really wants to continue pushing right now. Ooh, what's this? What's this? This has gotta be one of the queen buffs. I don't know what the icons look like, but we'll again see what it's called in just a little bit on the right side of the screen when it's just a few seconds away from being done. But I'm pretty excited to see what this is. Looks like some sort of healing ability, right? At least the little healing, like the little pluses in the top left corner of the ability are indicating that sort of thing. Alright, despite the fact that Reynor managed to shut down the opponent's economy, he's not gone straight for another attack. Instead, he's gonna get his Zerglings trapped over here at the bottom. Maybe not ideal. And he's also just trying to use this as now an opportunity to go into the gold base and build up on some additional tech. So this is that new Hydra. This is that new Hydra upgrade. Again, if I understand correctly, yeah, it's called Ancillary Carapace. It increases the HP of the Hydra by 10 as well. Oh, okay. So it does two things. No, I misread it earlier. Correction. This is a straight 10% HP buff for the Hydra. And then they have another passive that they have by default that increases the amount of anti-air armor that they have based on the amount of carapace upgrades that you have. Okay, my bad. So this is a no-brainer upgrade. That's something you should be getting every game. I thought it was only useful against air for a little bit there, but that's wrong. Okay, Zergling's going in. Man, Reynor is once more pulling the switch, and he's suddenly everywhere. This is a problem. So many Terran units dying left, right, and center. We did, by the way, finish the upgrade. The mystery upgrade, because I was still distracted and I did not quite see the name. I'm gonna back up. I'm gonna back up. Swarm Queen armor. Alright, I guess Swarm Queen armor is the armor upgrade for the queens. There you go. Came up with that all by myself. Yeah. Hope you guys are impressed. Oh, wow. There's been 34 adjustments to the Swarm Queen, according to the log. So they have two abilities. This one was called Osteoderm Reformation. Better known as Swarm Queen armor, apparently. I guess it's like nanomuscular swell. It's just really the dash ability for Hydralisks. Siege tank's getting surrounded here. The friendly fire reducer on the siege tank's not as useful, obviously, when playing Terran Mech, because it only reduces the damage from, I believe, or the friendly fire damage, rather, to light and then biological units. These units are neither. Well, actually, maybe against... Yeah, there are some situations where with Terran Mech it would still be useful, but you're not really trying to protect some of your units here. You're really trying to protect your Cyclones. The main thing you want to worry about. That might still be useful, though, for the siege tank upgrade, but it's kind of expensive. Okay. Yeah, it would still help out against Hellions and Hellbats. Look at the Swarm Queens going in. It's kind of funky, eh? Having 5 regular queens and then 5 Swarm Queens. I don't mind it, though. What I do mind right here for ByuN is his army getting caught off guard in the exact same location as his previous Battle Mech army. Reynor just going in for the surround yet again and absolutely decimating all of these Terran units. Dang. Yeah, that hurts. Now, one thing that is really good here, though, for our Mech Terran is the fact that he's got a similar amount of workers here. As a matter of fact, he's got 90 SCVs right now versus 89 drones. So economically, he's totally fine. But usually, Terran Mech is the more, yeah, sustainable unit composition as the game goes on, right? And in this particular instance, well, he's been losing a lot of units. Now, what is this? Is that the next queen upgrade? I would imagine so. What was the name of that upgrade again? Ah, yeah. Subdermal creep follicles. Allows the swarm queens to passively generate creep as they walk. Does that mean that the queens can go off creep? Because they passively generate their own creep. So they're always on creep. Right? Or do they have to stand still for a little bit? I don't know. Maybe. Greater Spire as well coming in. Yeah, I think using queens as like a spellcaster in the late game is going to be very viable if you can indeed move them off creep. I think that's probably what it is though. But it's kind of awkward, right? Because you now have to make the queens, and then you have to upgrade the queens as well, and then you can finally start moving them off creep. So it's a multi-stage type of spellcaster to switch to in the later stages of the game. But the fact that the Swarm Queen only costs minerals, with gas usually being the main bottleneck for Zerg, it really is a good alternative to just sending lings all over the place. Yep, so there's the creep follicles upgrade. Okay, Brenda. Do you now generate your own creep? Can you guys take a little trip off creep, please? I guess Reynor's busy. I don't see anything different. I would like to see it being used, but I don't know if he's gonna remember. That's my main concern here, that these ladies are just gonna get blasted by a bunch of cyclones. Man, that was really close. They could have actually gotten killed. Zerglings again getting the wraparound on a lot of these units. Here go the queens. Save them, Reynor! Save the queens! Oh no, we just got all the upgrades. Yeah, okay, well, let's forget about that ability. Let's maybe save it for another time. Yeah, alright, whatever. I don't think we're gonna make new ones. I think it was just upgrading the existing queens for the jokes. And then he got distracted. Zerglings do try to burrow over here in the mineral line. Reynor is likely gonna be trying to go into a Brute Lord switch. Kind of expensive, though. Nicely done here by ByuN, though. Look at the supply count now. Suddenly, our Terran player is back in this once again. He's going Thors right now as well. Vikings get added into the mix because I think the scan must have indeed caught the tail of one of those brutes. And that's gonna allow ByuN now to get some more units out. Is he targeting his own units? Yeah, I think he was targeting some of his own units there to get another Thor going. Okay. It is important you respect the brutes, but you don't want to just go full Brute Lord counter, because then the Lingbane Hydra army will destroy you. If you go only Viking Thor, for example, that is a little bit unfortunate. So he could go for the high impact mode Thors instead. Apparently that is an alternate production here on the Thor now, but ByuN not opting for it, even though it probably would be better. There's no way you're going to want to fight these brutes without high impact mode. It's just not really worthwhile. 4 additional command centers get added into the mix, though. Yep, we're making a whole load of them. Kind of a risky position. Why are we making the 4 additional or the 3 additional command centers right over here? He's trying to see if we can potentially get the lock-on onto the Brute Lords. Difficult to pull off. One of the command centers already got denied. Second command center also getting denied. Yo, why is ByuN throwing this game all of a sudden? Wait a second, ByuN. Why did we just make the command centers in like the most exposed location imaginable? I guess a slightly worse position would be over here, but only by a slight margin. Thor's not in high impact mode. Thor's not in the right mode. Okay, he's got smart servos. That's gonna allow him to transform, but still those Thors missed out on a shot, and they just got decimated. Some of the Brute Lords, though, did die, but it's now allowing the Hydras to get underneath. Vikings ended up falling. Oh, man, that fight went way better for Zerg than it should have. Yeah, and ByuN obviously losing the command centers is really expensive. Okay. We have some queens here, ready to transfuse. She's eager. Stop running! There we go. I kind of like it when you could transfuse off creep. I don't know. There's something about it. Maybe I'm biased. I have done many a queen all-in. Ooh, Vipers! Vipers are real scary in this type of setup. I feel like ByuN was really far ahead, but then he decided to take a bit of a break. Stop thinking for a little bit, you know? Put your brain on hold. Man, this fight is not going all too hot, though, for Reynor. The abductions were nice and all, but just the sheer amount of stuff that ByuN has here is working out really nicely for the Terran. Yeah, and he is going to be able to now secure another base. Okay. Hey, that's that new little animation there on the armory as well with the red light. I am a fan of that. It's always cool. Okay, Reynor has decided that we're not gonna do any more Brute Lords, I don't think. We're now gonna do Ling, Hydra, some Banelings maybe, but mostly Ling, Hydra, Viper. And it's a good unit composition here. As long as you have the all upgrades, right? You have all the full upgrades. And Hydra's being 10 more HP is a big deal. It really does make them quite a bit more tanky. Oh, it's a great engagement right here for Zerg, man. Not enough Hellbats in the mix. Keep in mind, though, that economically speaking, both players here have pretty much the same level of income. Normally, Zerg obviously has more money coming in than Terran. While ByuN has made this quite difficult for himself, he is still getting some really nice boosts. Yeah. The peaks and the valleys are whenever the mules were mining over the last 10 minutes. Not too surprising to see that. In the meantime, we have Hellbats together with Cyclones all the way at the gold base now. A very exposed base. Zerg running on over in this direction. Again, ugh, Lynx trying their absolute best. By the way, I've never looked up whether or not Zerglings are adjusted. I doubt it. Oh, they have more movement speed on creep. Huh. So they have gone from pre-metabolic boost movement speed. Okay, I see. So since queens are now significantly weaker against ground units, some early defense reliance has been shifted off the queen and onto the Zerglings by making the pre-metabolic boost Zerglings more threatening on creep. Okay. I'm fine with that, I guess. Extra movement speed before link speed? Sure. I guess there might be some early game cheeses that would be really hard to stop otherwise. They would have to be really early, though. Like a proxy marine type of build with a bunker. Especially since the bunker is kind of buffed. Only a couple seconds, but... Little hit squat yet again, and this time around he will get what he came for. That'll be the end of the hatch. Scan over here would be awesome. Yep. Nicely done by ByuN. Reynor's economy, though, has still been really solid across the board, right? He's had that base up for a long time, and you can see it reflected now in the bank. Reynor maxed out, or near maxed out. Well, at least before this fight he was. Not as much gas, maybe? But he's got a lot of minerals. Yeah, the gases really do need to be acquired. We're still missing a few of them. Okay. And now we're getting to that stage in the game again, where it all comes down to that base all the way up north. Both players have now taken basically their side of the map, and they want to start skirmishing for the final resources. Obviously, though, there's still some vulnerabilities here as well in the middle, especially on the side of the Zerg. ByuN needs to be careful that he does not overextend. He's bleeding out a lot of units, man. It always has me a little bit worried. Zerglings trying their best to maybe set up a bit of a run-by towards that base at the bottom. For some reason, we didn't go planetary here. Likewise, though, no planetary here for the Zerg. That would be a cool upgrade. Add some passive spine crawlers onto your hatch. How about a siege staff tank in the healing shrine? Base here at the bottom, though, in a world of trouble, and that is so many drones dying. Reynor's supply count has taken an absolute nosedive. Only about 50 workers remain here for the Italian Zerg player. That does mean that he's leaving a lot of supply available for army. Hatchery here in the middle ends up going down as well. Base all the way up north, retaken here by the Zerg. Reynor is now effectively living off of the bank, though. He's made big investments into it when he was younger in this game. And he's living off of that right now. But being a retired Zerg player may never really be that smart of an idea. Yep. ByuN's still harvesting off of 91 workers, which is almost crazy. I wonder if he should actually just take some of these losses and say thank you. Right? Like, just take some of the supply losses and replace that with army supply instead. He did snipe another base, but that was pretty expensive for a man who doesn't have a lot of money. He's trying to remax once more. It does take a little while. This game is not yet over, though. It's been pretty good for ByuN across the board. This Terran Mech army seems to be very viable. Well, Queen's going in with some mass transfusions. Vikings trying their best. Here go the Lings yet again, though. So many Hydras underground as well. The Viking transition is nice, but the Vikings are not going to be too useful past this point. At least not without some of those upgrades. Okay. Reynor's still going into Corruptors is so kind of... It's kind of weird, right? Generally speaking, we don't see Zergs making Brute Lords multiple times throughout a game. But I guess if Terran is going into a whole lot of Vikings and Thors, that's exactly where the Ling Hydra army is so sick again. Yeah, you may as well give it a shot. Here we go. Zerg is trying to see if they can potentially break open the high ground. We've had a big transition towards Thors. So in general, there's just not a whole lot of siege tank right now available. As a matter of fact, we've just got the one. Yet again, here go the Hydras. These couple Corruptors trying their absolute best to distract this army. ByuN kind of getting torn into small little chunks. I think he should be able to stabilize from here, though. Yeah, his supply count is looking real nice at this stage in the game. And I think that this is going to be all she wrote for Reynor. Reynor did re-secure the 12 o'clock base, but there's only a very small amount of mining. G indeed gets cold. ByuN gets another point on the board. Oh, shit! Oh, come on! Oh, no! I didn't want to open the Liquipedia page for this tournament because I didn't want to spoil myself. But it turns out it used a double elimination bracket. And since ByuN came from the upper bracket, they did that stupid rule apparently, where the person from the upper bracket gets a 1-0 advantage going into the series. That meant that the score in this final game was actually 3-3. And that with ByuN obtaining the win in this particular game, he ends up winning the tournament 4-3 in the finals. Oh, that's a little bit anticlimactic. That being said, though, the games were honestly really sick. I really like how there's clear refinement, right? Like, this is my first time checking this out. I'm sure there's been some broken stuff in the past. But out of all of the things that I've seen, at least throughout this mod in all of these games, it's like a, this is a weird thing maybe to say, but it's like a labor of love, right? Like, unlike some of the changes that Blizzard has proposed with the 5.0.16 and some of the other things, it kind of felt to me that they were just throwing stuff at a wall and that they hoped something would stick. And then you end up with a command center, there's 300 minerals and some of the other weird adjustments. While I think they're not necessarily the end of the world, this feels better to me than many of the changes that we've seen recently coming out of Blizzard. And while maybe it's all a little bit much, because I feel like every unit got some adjustment and every unit got some new upgrade, maybe taking a couple of things here and there and incorporating them into the live version of StarCraft 2 would not be a bad choice. GG.